Joining us now, we have Alan Mendenhall. Alan, can you hear us? Can you see us, kind sir?
I can hear you. I can see you. Y'all look great. That music was good. I agree. It's great.
He's talented. Alan, he's talented.
Well, it is nuts. Like, seriously, the new AI music software, I have a thing, and I could play what you just heard on acoustic guitar, but then you could play that direct in and then put in prompts. So I think I put sparse production, horn stabs.
Nice.
And it just, in seconds, rolls this out. I know there are a lot of professional musicians, and my point to them would be like, guys, we still need people to actually play instruments, so whatever is made.
Put the input, someone's got to do the inputs before AI.
Exactly.
Alan, he's like Boston. They were a studio band, but he really is more than a studio band.
So, number one, great to see you, sir. And you're joining us from the Mises Institute over there in Auburn?
Yeah, I was at the Austrian Economics Research Conference over the weekend, which is one of my favorite annual events. And of course, the Mises Institute is right here in my backyard. It is the home of Austrian economics in the world. And I saw Clay Barnett there, an old friend of mine. I've done a lot of stuff with the Mises Institute over the years, an associated scholar there. I said, hey, Clay, would it be possible for me to use the studios this week? Because I'm going on Newsmax this afternoon after your show. And Clay was like, yeah, let's do it. So here I am.
Love it. Love it.
I love it too.
Now,
can I
tell
say
us,
one thing about Tuberville? I just want to say one thing about Tuberville because it's really an honor to follow him on the show. And I love that he still goes by coach rather than senator because to me, that reveals something about the way he views his role in public life. And it's not as some faraway, distant office holder, but as a hands-on leader who shapes and guides a team, and I love it. I love it. He'll probably be Coach Tuberville as governor. And I think that's awesome.
I think he prefers it, actually.
Dude, yeah.
Now, I want to move to some of what you've been writing about. You've got a trending piece today about the Alabama Supreme Court, sort of a follow-up on your taking on the American Bar Association. But I want to go with what you did last week about the Corporate Equality Scorecard, or what do they call it, the Corporate Equality Index pushed by the Human Rights Campaign. Seems like a lot of Fortune 500s are tired of this stuff.
Yeah, so I've got the article right in front of me, so I can say, let's see, 65 fewer Fortune 500 companies chose to participate in the index this year. That number fell from 377 to 131. This is unbelievable. And there are other corporations that still have high scores, but the high scores are unverified scores, which suggests that those companies are not actually participating in the index. Their scores are holdovers from previous years. And let me just tell you what you have to do to get a 100 score. You have to have insurance covering what I called sex-rejecting surgical procedures, but what that really means is you have to have insurance coverage for transgender surgeries or puberty blockers for minors, that kind of thing. Gender ideology affirming restrooms. You have to use pronouns. And by the way, the University of Wisconsin used to have this hilarious chart, which it presented in all seriousness, of all the pronouns that were out there. And I don't remember how many on there, but it was just like this gigantic chart. I'm like, who can do, like, whatever happened to just he or she? They're just two options. Like, but this had, like, I don't even know how many, but it was impossible to navigate as a chart. And you had to have mandatory LGBTQ trainings for staff. You had to do all those things to get 100. So firms like Regions Financial that used to have a 100 have now dropped to 60. And so not only has Regions dropped to 60, but it's an unverified 60. So that shows that Regions is not actually even participating in the Corporate Equality Index anymore. But for years and years, the HRC would just bully corporations. And corporations felt that they had to get these high scores on the CEI, or they get boycotted, or whatever it was. And now the inverse is true. Now it is a liability for you to participate in the HRC's CEI. I know those are a lot of acronyms, but to participate in this Corporate Equality Index. And I would encourage everybody in Alabama to visit the HRC's website to look up the Corporate Equality Index and see what Alabama firms are on there and call them up And if they don't have an unverified score, but they have a verified score, stop doing business with them, institute your own pressure campaign, tell all your friends, don't shop at these places, don't go there, don't bring your business to these places. I mean, it used to be Alabama hospitals were pretty bad. UAB was unreal how bad UAB is.
Yeah, and so it sounds like this was much more than like you better enforce non-discrimination laws and employment law or something like that. This was across the board, try to shape the culture through an outside pressure campaign. And can folks check at what you mentioned in the article, the 1792 exchange?
Yes, everybody should go to the 1792 exchange. It's got this, we're looking for the name of it, the Back to Business Tracker. So check out the Back to Business Tracker. I do a lot of work with 1792 exchange. And at the Heritage Foundation, as you know from previous shows, we're doing a lot of shareholder engagement where we're filing shareholder proposals at these companies. And we rely on the 1792 exchange's database. And we look up what these corporations are doing because 1792 exchange has done a ton of research on these organizations. And in fact, when we do these shareholder engagements, often we will invite somebody from 1792 exchange to sit in on the meeting with us. Often we'll invite somebody from Alliance Defending Freedom to sit in on the meeting with us. Sometimes we'll have them both in on the meeting so we could say, look, 1792 exchange has this data and ADF is ready to sue if you do something that we don't like here. So, you know, we come with a posse, they bring a posse, and it's a great experience, to be honest. I think I mentioned earlier in a previous show that our engagements have ended up being actually quite friendly for the most part, with the exception of a couple corporations, Amazon, Starbucks. But with the exception of those two, most of our engagements have been pretty positive and professional, and we've got a good rapport now with the companies, and maybe we can negotiate things in the future as shareholders without even having to file a shareholder proposal.
And what a change after 6 years. There's a time there in 2020 where, say you're going to go to the grocery store and buy a Snickers bar. Is it just going to be a complete black wrapper in honor of the George Floyd? Or is it going to be a safer at home sort of theme thing? Or is it going to be rainbow flags? And like, you just never knew. And it's good to see, you know, some of these major corporations, these Fortune 500s realizing, oh, we could just, you know, have our own brand and people like us because, like, people like Cracker Barrel because it's, you know, good down-home country eating like breakfast. People like Coca-Cola because it's Coca-Cola. Like, you don't have to don't recreate the wheel, just be who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And what I like to tell people about our shareholder engagement is we're not trying to turn every corporation into Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby. That, you know, those corporations are great and they actually do their business better than other competitors do it. But we're trying to get companies back to neutral. We're trying to get them to focus on their core business purpose, to focus on profit maximization, to focus on fiduciary duty, because we don't want to just do like what the left did in reverse, because if you're using shareholder money for social causes, that's a form of theft. That's a form of misallocation of resources away from the core business purpose. And so that's not great either. From a managerial perspective, we might do research that says, hey, if you manage your company in this way and you have this type of organizational culture, you'll have a superior company. But as shareholders, we're not engaging companies to turn them into like right-wing versions of whatever left-wing version we're trying to correct. We're trying to get them back to, as I said, core business purpose, fiduciary duty, profit maximization.
Jerry and I were talking earlier today, and I think I kind of deep dove into the index, and I love it because it's not a very narrow band. It's pretty broad band, from freedom of religion, the things that you are covering in there, and the requirements really gives you, I think, a good footprint on what these corporations are doing. And my question to you is this: do you think you were talking about in your paper, your recent paper, that there's been a huge shift of companies disengaging from the practices of that? Do you think that's temporal, meaning the environment is such that it's that way, or do you think they are genuine in what they're doing?
Well, it's hard to tell because whether they're genuine, just because a corporation consists of so many people and you can't access in their heads. It's like when you're trying to do legislative intent or something, and you can't like get in every legislator's head to know what it is, and that's why we have originalism. But like, I will say some of it is no doubt a response to the Trump administration. Yeah. For example, we engaged with a bunch of federal contractors doing DEI, and after the Harvard UNC admissions decision, you know, it's very difficult for not just universities, which can't discriminate on the basis of race, but it's difficult for companies to justify DEI because DEI requires companies to discriminate on the basis of race, which is a surface level characteristic. It is an immutable characteristic that you're born with, that you cannot choose. And we want to evaluate people on merit. We want to evaluate people on their intent, on the things they choose, not on things they can't help, like the color of their skin. And in fact, that's what DEI does, is it classifies people on the basis of race, which is an immutable characteristic. And that's why it is fundamentally so evil.
Hear, hear. Now, I want to shift gears to the piece that came out today, and this is a follow-up to you essentially telling Alabama in the Supreme Court here in Alabama, you don't have to have the American Bar Association be this accrediting monopoly here. You already do approve a lot of other law schools, but it sounds like you got some rebuttal to that and commentary back at you, and you're now rebutting the rebuttals. Let's go over this and how the Supreme Court here in Alabama is fine enough, thank you very much. They can actually do the job probably better than the ABA.
Well, yeah, the interesting reaction was people saying, well, the Alabama Supreme Court's not equipped to do this. Our Supreme Court's not good enough. Our Supreme Court's not smart enough. I'm like, no, it is. We've got highly competent justices up there, and they already regulate the profession. It's their constitutional duty. Some people think that the Alabama State Bar is like the regulatory apparatus, but it answers to the Alabama Supreme Court. And by treating the Alabama State Bar that way, it's like the tail wagging the dog. No, the Supreme Court is the ultimate authority for the judicial branch in our state. And it can decide whether to let graduates of a non-ABA school sit for the Alabama Bar. And in fact, it does so. For a long time, it let graduates of a Korean law school named Handong Law School sit for the state bar. And I like that because Handong was a Christian law school. It has an American legal education. Its students come over here and clerk for our justices all the time, and we've got a great relationship. For a long time, its dean was a guy named Eric Enlow, who has since moved back to the United States, but a very Christian man, Christian conservative guy, and that was a great arrangement. But we let students from Miles and Birmingham College of Law sit for the bar, and those aren't ABA accredited. And really, it's a very simple thing. We do what Texas did and what Florida did. We say, look, we're no longer going to recognize the ABA as an accreditor. It's basically an ideological activist group at this point. And we're going to, from henceforth, say at this moment, everybody that's ABA accredited from now is grandfathered in, and we'll let all those schools sit. But from henceforth, we will make a determination whether to add or subtract schools. We're going to take the roughly 180 schools on the list and start with those, but we may add some, we may take some away for whatever reasons. I mean, we've had a lot of law schools close over the last 10 years, so like, you take away Charlotte, you take away Savannah Law School, you take away those types of places and they're just gone. But you can add some if there's some good ones to add.
Yeah, and it just also seems to go what's happened in the 20th century and hopefully is unwinding here in the 21st century. It's not just centralization in government, but a lot of these informal regulatory bodies ended up becoming the central de facto monopoly. And in order to have, say, professional standards, like maintain high standards for lawyers on a professional level, it almost seems like you would need more than just one spot because there's a single point of failure and capture. And so to me, you're sitting there at the Mises Institute, this idea of where you could have sort of a spontaneous order, including in something like regulating lawyers, makes a lot of sense to me and probably will create a better product at the end of the day.
Yeah, and actually these state bar associations started springing up in the early 20th century as a sort of discriminatory apparatus. They sprung up to be anti-competitive by nature because the legal profession started seeing entrepreneurs spring up, and these entrepreneurs, they weren't white or they weren't rich. They were poor people, and they were really entrepreneurial, and the bar was threatened by this, and they said, "Oh, look, we gotta set some standards." Now, and the standards could be anything from now you have to pass a bar exam. Oh, in order to sit for a bar exam, you have to go to 3 years of law school. Oh, and the requirements just kept getting heavier and bigger, and these are barriers to entry. This is just classic kind of public choice stuff. These are barriers to entry, And it means it becomes more expensive to be able to like be initiated into the incumbent firm's world, ecosystem. And as it becomes more and more expensive to become a lawyer, these costs get passed off onto consumers who have to pay more for services that shouldn't cost that much. And in the day of AI, let me tell you, there are a lot of people that are just going to be writing their own wills. In Alabama, you don't need an attorney to write your will. You can write your own will. And you're going to see a lot more people chat GPTing their will because like they're not going to want to pay an attorney because the costs are just too much. Would they be better off having an attorney look at the will? Absolutely. I'm sure they would be, especially somebody that does trust in estates. Anybody that has complex assets or anything like that would definitely be better off hiring an attorney. But if you've got a pretty simple arrangement, you know, you could just chat GPT it and probably be just fine. And you're going to see that because the costs are so high.
I'm a Grok man, though. ChatGPT gives me the creeps. It's almost too suggestive, and like, whereas Grok's just a little more fun.
Agreed.
But either way, I get your point's well taken, and I think you need to open up things not only for a better product, but just more access in general. And I think that is just a problem that's bedeviled the system since it began. Of the rich seem to get better representation. The rich seem to be able to hold certain doors and gates. And that's an unfortunate thing. And so whether it's modern technology or just opening things up into law, I think it's a better approach.
Hey, I have a confession to make real fast to both of you. I just started The Theory of Capital by Menger again, and I got to tell you something. I remember why I like the military sciences better than the economic sciences. I just want to say that.
But at least the Austrians are easier to. You can actually read them. They actually are good with the word.
They are.
As opposed to
it's pretty dry.
Some other stuff. But
it's funny. It was like 2 weeks ago. I was defending Hayek's prose to somebody because I actually tend to like Hayek's prose, and then somebody sent me a sentence, and I looked at it. I was like, okay, well that sentence is indefensible. That one's that. I'm not going to defend that sentence, but I wouldn't take that one as representative either.
Right. Well, folks don't know what we're talking about. Like, go pick up like a basic book by, say, Murray Rothbard, and it's engaging. It's like half the time you can feel the guy's like fist punching through the page. Like there are a lot of great writers in the Austrian tradition, and there are. Like even when it's high theory, I think it's really great stuff. I didn't know you were reading Menger.
I was a political science major. I have a master's degree in political science from Ole Miss, and I went to law school at the University of Dayton for a year. So I was exposed to a lot of capital theory and that stuff, and I thank God for people like you, Alan. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, if the best thing that could possibly happen from this show, we've talked about the bar, we've talked about the corporate equality, it would be like people buying a bunch of books by Menger right now and reading it. That would be awesome.
Amen. Now, again, folks, we've been talking to Alan Mendenhall. He's a research fellow at the Thomas A. Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies and senior advisor Free Enterprise Initiative. They're at the Heritage Foundation. And folks want to check out your work, Alan. I know you, of course, weekly there at 1819 News on Monday mornings, but you have a lot of work that is published all over the place, right?
I do, yeah. It's my website is alanmendenhall.com, ALLENMENDENHALL, and I post all my writings there. I'm probably going to take the videos off because now I do news as like my job, and so I'm doing this several times a week, and there are too many videos to post, so I'm going to just take all the videos off and stick with the writings up there. But yeah, that's the best place.
Well, I always appreciate your time, Alan, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Again, that's Alan Mendenhall. Always appreciate his time, and yes, he is awesome.
He's just he's just so positive and so on it, man. He's
he's got a great sense of fashion and style. He's just a full, life force.
He's a man amongst men, and I will say this: he doesn't know how to clean his office though, because he used the power blower. Remember that? That was the funniest thing. But he goes, I can't find anything. It's everywhere.
Well, we got to hit this break. We'll be right back, folks, after this.